Hey, Liam, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. Well, my name is Liam Healy. I'm a managing director of an international software business called Diligent. Diligent is a leading provider of governance, risk, technology, and ESG software. So we serve boards of directors, all the executives and operating groups that work for the boards of directors across the world, both public and private. That's a bit about the business. About me, unique background as an executive. I spent 8 years in professional baseball in the States. So I played a little bit for Kansas City and a little bit for the Orioles, and then spent some time in independent baseball. After that, I got into business and spent my time as an individual contributor, and then as a manager, and then as a manager of managers. Have moved through think tank consulting, moved into scale up startups at all sizes, 0 to 1 million, 1 to 5, 5 to 50, 100 to 250, and now we are north of we are bigger than that. We're about 2,500 people.
Wow.
Been diligent globally. And in that journey, spent most of my time in the US. And then now my family and I have moved to London. So we live in the United Kingdom. We're in the center of the city, which is fantastic. And it's just an amazing country. We've been here for about 5 years. We've got 2 beautiful girls that were both born here. They don't have British accents yet. But yeah, it's been a great journey.
Well, that's it. I saw your first name and I was expecting an accent. I saw the location was London. And then I go, I'm not hearing an accent.
Yeah, a lot of people think that. We've been very fortunate. I have Irish heritage. So my great grandfather was from Upper Comas or Mayo, which is just north of Galway on the west coast of Ireland. And my grandmother lived in the States, and we grew up in the States and spent all my time in the States. And then when we were acquired about 6 years ago by the Diligent Corporation, about 2 months in, I started doing due diligence on companies abroad. And so I was spending a lot of time going back and forth. And then I had an affinity for one of the companies that we bought. I fell in love with it, a big diamond in the rough and huge opportunity. And so our CEO said, well, look, if you're open to moving there, why don't you take on that business and see what you can do with it? And so we did that. And then that then broadened to all of EMEA. And then from all of EMEA broadened to all of our international business.
And what was the adjustment leaving baseball into corporate? What was that like?
They do not teach you a whole lot of business acumen in batting practice. I can tell you that.
No, they don't.
I think it was at the time. It was hard. It was hard. Looking back, I think, and I think many athletes would probably attest to this. Is the number of transferable skills and traits that you amass in your time in any athletics, let alone professional athletics when you're getting paid to do the job, which it really becomes, is fantastic, right? It's a learning experience I would never trade for the world, even though at a time where I said, gosh, I've really stalled my career in going into business, where all of my friends and peers had leapfrogged me in certain points in their career. It was hard though, that transition. And the first job I got with the corporate executive board, which is now part of Gartner, talking to the Fortune 500 executives around sales and marketing and advertising communications best practices. I think I probably heard from no less than 10 people, my lack of business acumen. And I think actually my first sales meeting, I think the person, I won't, the company not to be named, but this head of marketing that sat across the desk from me, who spent, God bless his soul, spent 30 minutes listening to me rant and pitch, looked at me and said, "This is your first sales job, isn't it?" And I said, what gave it away? What gave it away? So that was, but yeah, since then, it's just been a learning journey.
And I got to imagine in athletics, in the back of your mind, it's always, it's not a very long career, no matter how good you are. Right? It's still, when you get into your 40s, you constantly reminded you should be thinking of what's next.
It's a one of the things I learned along the way is, stress is something that we put on ourselves, right? Arguably, no one can put stress on you. How we receive it and how we manage through it is our choice. But I will tell you, learning that through 8 years of a professional job, when you're paid to do the job, spring training for us was, you wake up and you get going early in the morning, but the walk to the clubhouse in spring training is my uniform in my locker. And that anxiety that drives you to be great, right, really sets a hate to lose mentality in many individuals. Which, where, depending on if you've read Carol Dweck's book on mindset, right, loves to win is a really healthier mindset. But I will tell you, hates to lose individuals are very, very driven. So to your point on like, what's next, I often find athletes are constantly thinking about their ambition plan and how they're moving forward.
And that really transfers well to sales. Because you're only as good as your last quarter, your last year. If you've ever been at that awards banquet where they give you the award and then ask you what's closing this quarter at the same time, same conversation. Yeah,
they're in the day 91 of your quarter. It's funny. We joke with our sales team. It's like, you push towards the close of a quarter and keeping your forecast for that Fidelity high, and like you push it, and then it's like, and now what? Well, here's what. Let's do it again, right? Like it's right, and it's like so yeah. Only as good as your last quarter, and but we try and keep it in perspective. I think we do a good job with that, but it is relentless, yeah.
And what did you like about sales?
Look, I think a lot of people would probably attest this. I'll speak out of philosophy. I am very much a controller of my own destiny. I think one of the things, I was not an athlete. I wasn't an athlete that was a top round pick. I certainly wasn't sought after to go to many big universities before, my professional career, and afterwards that, continued, right? Never the 100 President's Club guy every year. But what I do have is I have a work ethic that I think is beyond many. I think one of the things that I believe in is you can outwork almost any problem, right? Whether you want to or not is a different case. Yeah. But you can put the time in to solve, to learn about a problem, to figure it out, to digest it, to iterate on it, and to eventually, persevere towards a favorable outcome if you want to, and if you're focused to do it. Distractions, including anything that drives a lack of focus on that, can slow people down. But in sales, I found very quickly, gosh, this is about how much time I want to put into solving this problem and getting to a result. And that really made me fall in love with it.
And did baseball give you that kind of emotional regularity to stick with a problem for a long period of time? Because that's hard.
Yeah, as a 220 hitter, I was solving that problem for a lot of years. I can remember late in my career, and I had a batting coach, Kevin Long, who was a batting coach for the Yankees for a long time, and then now he's with the Washington Nationals, which is great. We live in Washington; I get to see him from time to time. But I can remember being, he had said to me, he's a work ethic guy himself, and he said very early, look, meet me here at 6 a.m. and we'll work together. But the first day you're late, I'll stop working with you. And this was a big league guy that, for all intents and purpose, had taken a liking to me and was willing to spend his time on me. And so really it was about how much did I want to get out of it. And so that stuck with me. And so we worked together for many years, and that was great. I think we try to instill that I've always tried to instill that in our people. It's our job to help make you better and make ourselves available, but you got to want to show up every single day to do it.
And that's a key distinction.
100%.
Because a lot of people, a lot of talk today about servant leadership and all of this stuff, but the other person's got to show up.
Yeah, look, luck is a residue of design. I think I shared that. I think I said that to somebody earlier today, who we were talking, doing line by line forecast reviews as we get into 5 weeks before a quarter closes, and we're doing skip levels upon skip levels. So I've got leaders that have managers, and I'm spending time with our individual contributors, and we're going line by line on these deals. And I hear words like luck and like hope, and right, you hear those in many conversations, and it's look, that is having a methodology that we want to follow, driving through that methodology, being consistent with it, regardless of how boring we think that is from any given time, will produce consistent results. It just will, and it does. And so, like, sticking with that and doing that day in and day out is monotonous, but fruitful.
Because as a rep, you're not seeing a lot of the holes because you don't want to see the holes in your deal, right?
Yeah, it's funny because in reflection for our chat, right? I thought through, like, well, what are some of the things that like I think are true that maybe others don't think are true, I often find in our individual contributors, and maybe many of the listeners might feel this way about their teams or about individual contributors, or maybe even ourselves at a certain point, is there's this radical candor that we look away from, right? We're trying to solve some abstract problem of, I got to get a deal, and it's like I got to put it through this framework, and often I think we don't look at it objectively in the mirror and say, what's missing? What do I not have? How does someone make a decision on this? Why would they not do it, right? Things like that I think that just in normal day-to-day life, we do in the decision-making that we go about as consumers, right? In the B2B world with customers, we don't seem to put others through that lens and to think like it and to go through that process. And I think there's like, some people have like some bipolar disconnect with this radical candor. And I think the more that do, they're pretty good at it. The ones that don't, I think, are objectively not good.
I think it's just, as being mammals, we don't want to feel pain. We're pain avoiding, pleasure seeking creatures. And anything that kind of rains on our parade is not exactly pleasure. We have to make that mental leap that going through that little bit of pain is worth it to get that deal.
That is probably one of the, maybe I'm probably sadistic about that. That is, I think I am, if nothing else, in my career, I'm pretty objective. I have no problem taking one hat off, putting another hat on, taking both hats off, having an open conversation, and being transparent or visible, et cetera. And I think that there are times when I look at a problem objectively and go, that is my fault, right? Or I don't have this information. It's binary. Right. And it's not about what I think, it's about what I know. And, in many of the conversations, to your point, right, I think we have people that avoid, right, that sort of a conversation versus like run at it head on. You'll solve it faster if you believe it and know it. It's a great point.
And I'm sure you got that in baseball with the hitting coach. I bet 90% of what he told you didn't feel good. Right? It says you got to change your swing.
More like 95% of it. Yeah, it was,
he's not telling you how handsome and gregarious you are. He's saying, no, you're missing. Your weight's on the wrong leg. Keep an eye on the ball. Anticipate it coming in.
Yeah, nailed it. It is the how often, and it's funny now because I watch, I'll go to a game every once in a while and watch. And when I hear people say it's not comfortable, this doesn't feel right. Right. Or as I have friends that actually do, coaching now, and I go to some of their games from time to time. It's like, it doesn't feel good. It's like, well, it's not going to feel good. It's new. Right. It's a muscle that you have to work out, work through and develop. Yeah, totally.
And what are some of those questions you asked during that forecast that are the go-to questions?
I mean, there are basics. I mean, it depends on where we are. I mean, the way that we think about, the way that I think about forecasting fidelity is, early in a quarter, right? First call it 3 to 4 weeks. More art than science is okay. We're looking at pipeline coverage, and I might ask questions around, what's your top line guess? What are the few deals that you certainly can see your way through? And let's talk through kind of the criteria of those deals and why they're moving. But what's the gap, right? Where's the gap towards what your forecast looks like, and how much coverage do you have? And that's kind of aggregate information. As we move into the middle of that quarter, really is where, I'm pressure testing our leaders and their managers, and certainly as we do start to skip levels, on having a line of sight to a commitment, but also understanding that there should be some percentage uplift to a forecast. I mean, by definition, we are predicting, we're guessing, right? We're handicapping. And still keeping in the back of your mind, this aggregate number of coverage of your pipeline gives you some upside. So you have these three numbers, and some groups call it worst case, commit, best case. Some groups call it, it goes
Chernobyl.
like version, right? As we get closer towards the end of month 2 of a quarter, best practice from a forecasting fidelity standpoint being, if you're going to miss 5% down, but give me 10% upside. So that variance there gives us some play, and it allows people to have autonomy to be wrong, maybe be wrong on the better side, hopefully. But if they're going to be wrong, like start to get into a line of sight on every single deal that's going to move the needle. And specifically within, I start to ask managers and managers of managers is, in that upside that gets you to your number and over, right? Because you got to help out your brethren that may fall short. What are the executive sponsors that you need on this, right? How do you, what are the legal parameters? Maybe what are the security parameters from a software standpoint? What are all the things that are going to hold us up, slow us down, that you might win in, week 14 of a quarter, which doesn't really exist, right? Like, how can we make sure that happens in quarter, right? And I've had plenty of 13-month years too, so.
And I think one of the things that reps don't get about talking about their forecast deals is that managers have a purview over deals over a long period of time, and the distinctions between the ones that are going to close and the ones that will slip or stall.
I think, look, gut feel, great. I mean, great leaders, I think, in sales, the best that I've seen, worked with, been close to, both understand the bottom-up build of a commit, right? Yeah. And they always have a little bit in their back pocket, but they also, to your point, they have that aggregate view, and they have a feel for, in my portfolio, I can see walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? So they can see deals that are shaping, and they can handicap that. And so those are the best. I think the ones that conversely, I think the ones that are on the other side of that pendulum, right, are one of two things. It's not always the ones that are guessing. Either they are so tight with the commitment and the bottom-up build that they're not giving themselves freedom to be great and to go try creative things. And I think the best managers, can unstick stuck stuff. And then the ones that are just complete guessing, right? They're the ones that are providing a forecast where they're all round numbers, right? Which would get audited by the IRS or by HMRC, right? It's like you just look at it and you go, yeah. Tell me more about that, right? If you hear that question, right, I think you're in bad shape.
And is there any particular question or answer that you get where it tells you that this deal that's in the high 90 plus likelihood is not going to happen this quarter?
Not an answer. I mean, look, I think we all have heard wishy-washy answers. I listen for a pause. The time that it takes in many cases to answer a question out of the gate gives me a level of indication of, have you thought about that question? that I've asked 10 times in the last 10 weeks. How are you thinking about it? Right? Are you 2, 3, 4, 5 layers deep in understanding that question? Like, you don't have to be right, but you have to have thought about it to give us a level of comfort. And so, yeah, look, I mean, I think that the 90 percenters, if we get there and we miss on deals, then typically those are actually repeat offenders. Those are people that always have rose-colored glasses on. It's the ones that are in the middle. If we can tip, will lead us to really good, favorable outcomes, that we listen for that pause. If there's pause there, I know, let's spend some time together, but let's dig in on, why are you not thinking about that? Where are you thinking? Where are you spending your time?
And I got to assume that these are big deals.
So yeah, look, we have the spectrum. And we've got in our portfolio, we probably have 12 assets that we could deploy from a product standpoint that could be all combined. It could be a 7-figure offer or more, high 7 figures. It could be very transactional, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 asset that is less than 90 days to create and close inside of a quarter.
And what are the typical things that cause the stall or the delay or the slipping into the next quarter?
There's buy side and sell side. So there's
on the buy side.
The buy side. On the buy side, we have to remember, and it's interesting because my wife is a user of our products in her role, which is interesting. And it's interesting to hear her view as a buyer, right? And we have to remember that the buyer always has the trump card. No matter how many cards we have in our hand, the buyer always has the ace, right? Because they don't have to buy it, and they don't have to make a decision. So we have to be a bit kind to ourselves, but that doesn't mean that we should relinquish the rigor that we put into being successful. And I think that's, what are those things? I think it's not having access to the economic buyer. I think it's not having compelling reasons as to why individuals do something. I think it's not being overly controlling. I'm a bit of a control freak in certain areas. Overly controlling when it comes to the buying process. So I think it's just a combination of either knowing we should have asked certain questions and not doing it, or in developing reps, not knowing what they don't know.
Yeah. And what out of the sales portfolio of skills do you feel is your strongest suit?
I think there's two. I think there's perseverance. That's one. I think candor. I am very fortunate. It's good and bad. I am very fortunate in my mind that I can level with people in a way that they can hear great information, or they can hear really hard and tough information, and still be open and receptive to having a good level conversation with me. And so I think getting to that level quickly allows me to navigate yes, but how versus no and why. And I think that's something that's allowed me to be very creative in my commercial career.
And how have you established that? Because I think every manager either thinks they have that or wants it.
I think just allowing myself to be. I have a lot of social anxiety, which may be hard.
Really, you don't show it.
I thank you. I know that's what my wife says, but in situations even like this, or if I go like networking, my heart rate goes through the roof. Like, am I going to say something stupid? Do they want to talk to me? Right? Like, there's this, and I think that comes from like this level of like, I was a professional athlete for so long, and now I'm in a business career, and have I earned the right to have, to be in certain settings, right? And so I've thought about that for a long time, but because of that, I've given myself in the last years. I've given myself the right to simply be open with people. And if they like what they have to hear, and we're going to get on the same side of the table and work together towards a common outcome, fantastic. If they're not, that's okay too. And that actually allows me, not just from a customer standpoint and to help, grow our business, but from an employee standpoint, being able to work and develop our teams, is to understand their aspirations, to match that to the business outcomes that we're looking for, has allowed me to earn that right and grow and help them grow.
And do you have to polish that or put a different lens on it when you're selling internally and up? Because I can see it works naturally going down, but going up is a different story, right?
It is if I could, I'm still working on that. I think the matrix is hard, right? I think when I hear individuals go, I don't know if I want to work in a bigger organization. Like what I hear is, I'm not sure that I want to. Did I lose you there for a second?
Yeah, it
Sorry.
froze. I was asking you, but I can edit this. How do you utilize it in the matrix in the large organization?
I've been really focusing on three sets of communications. Downward communications with my team, which I've gotten particularly good at over time. Upward communications, which I think I am still polishing, but I've gotten much better at upward management. I report into our COO and president and our CEO, and in fact, I've got a chat with him here in a few minutes. And where I really have focused in the last year or so is my 360-degree kind of conversations, which is these people actually don't have to listen to you. They don't report to you. They don't have to collaborate with you. You want them to collaborate with you. And I think that's where I've spent a tremendous amount of time of working on empathy and understanding their points of view. And that's hard. That is a skill, that is polish.
Definitely. Hey, Liam, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Please follow me, grab me on LinkedIn, Liam Healy, Liam first name, Healy last name, Healy. I am at